Hey guys, tonight our journey takes us into the heart of one of the most powerful and enigmatic empires in history. We are traveling to 16th century Istanbul, to the magnificent, sprawling and deeply secret world of the Topkapi Palace, the center of the Ottoman Empire. But we are not here as sultans or ambassadors. We are here to become one of the most misunderstood and mythologized figures of all time. We are going to explore what a harem guard actually did all day. Forget the lurid, romanticized paintings of the European imagination, the images of brutish, scimitar-wielding men guarding rooms of sensual indulgence. The reality was a far stranger, more complex, and more disciplined existence. It was a life of profound religious devotion, of absolute loyalty, and of a strange, almost monastic isolation within a world of immense power and intrigue. If you find value in these explorations of the past, a simple like or subscribe helps this channel continue its work. And as we gather from our separate corners of the world, a comment with your city and time is a welcome reminder of the connections we share in the present moment. Now, let the complexities of your own world begin to fade. Find your place of comfort and stillness. We are about to enter the Seraglio, the abode of felicity, a place where the silence was the most important rule, and where to see or hear the wrong thing was a fatal mistake. Your existence began in a moment of profound and brutal severance. You were a boy, perhaps 7 or 8 years old, from a village in the distant Caucasus or a province in the Balkans. You were taken, either as a captive in a raid or as part of the devniame, the child levy, a human tax imposed on the Christian subjects of the empire. You were taken from your family, from your language, from your religion. That boy is dead. You were brought to the great, bustling and terrifying city of Istanbul, and here you underwent the second severance, the one that would define your entire life. You were made a eunuch. It was a brutal, dangerous, and often fatal procedure. The boys who survived were irrevocably altered, set apart from the world of ordinary men. You were no longer a part of the great biological chain of lineage and family. Your loyalty would never be divided. Your only father would be the Sultan. You were then given a new name, a new language, Ottoman Turkish, and a new religion, Islam. You were taught the Quran, Islamic law, calligraphy, music, and the complex and deeply unforgiving etiquette of the Ottoman court. You were being forged not into a brute, but into a highly educated, cultured, and disciplined member of the palace elite. You are a man in your early 20s. You are a Kurslar, Aishas, one of the black eunuchs, the highest rank of harem guard, and your first day of formal duty is about to begin. You awaken before the first call to prayer in the deep, silent darkness before the dawn. You do not sleep in a common barracks. You have your own small, private chamber in the Agassiz quarters, a section of the palace just outside the harem proper. The room is simple but comfortable, with a fine carpet on the floor and a niche for your books. You perform the ritual ablutions, washing your hands, your face, your feet, purifying your body for the first of the 5 daily prayers. You then walk, your soft leather slippers making no sound on the polished stone floors, to the small private mosque for the eunuch corps. You and your brothers, the other eunuchs, stand shoulder to shoulder in perfect rows. The Imam's voice, chanting the ancient, beautiful and resonant verses of the Quran, is the only sound in the pre-dawn stillness. Your prayer is one of deep and genuine piety. Your faith is the bedrock of your identity. It is the framework that has given meaning to your strange and severed life. You have been cut off from the world of men. but you have been brought into the direct and constant service of God and his shadow on earth, the Sultan. After the prayer, you break your fast. It is a simple meal of bread, olives, cheese, and sweet tea. It is eaten in silence. The life of a harem guard is a life of profound and disciplined silence. You are trained to be an observer, not a participant. To speak unnecessarily is a sign of a weak and undisciplined mind. As the sun begins to rise over the Bosphorus, you go to your post. And this is the first thing that would shatter a modern person's understanding of your role. Your primary post is not inside the harem itself. It is outside its main gate, the Kumle Kapsh. This gate is the absolute, unbreachable boundary between the outer world of the palace, the Biran, where the men of the court and the army conduct their business, and the inner, forbidden world of the Harem I Humayun, the private domain of the Sultan and his family. Your job is to be the guardian of this boundary. You and one other Aga stand on either side of the great inlaid wooden doors. You are dressed in your formal robes of fine silk, a tall, turban-like headdress on your head. You hold a long, silver-topped staff, a symbol of your authority. You are not a brutish warrior. You are a silent and intimidating symbol of the Sultan's absolute power over this sacred and secret space. And your primary task for the next several hours is to do nothing. You must stand, your gaze fixed on a point in the middle distance. You are not to fidget. You are not to speak. You are to become a part of the architecture, a living statue. This is the first reason you would not last a day. Your modern mind, accustomed to a constant stream of stimulation, of entertainment, of distraction, would be driven to madness by this profound and disciplined stillness. The boredom would be a physical torment. But for you, it is not boredom. It is a state of heightened and vigilant awareness. It is a form of meditation. Your mind is not empty. It is active. You are observing everything. You are listening to the subtle sounds of the palace courtyard behind you. The footsteps of a vizier, the hushed tones of two officials engaged in a secret conversation. You are listening to the sounds from behind the harem door, the faint, distant laughter of the children, the sound of a musical instrument, the quiet, authoritative voice of the Valid Sultan, the Sultan's mother, who is the true ruler of the harem. You are a living security camera, a processor of subtle and potentially vital information. You are learning the rhythms, the moods, the secret currents of the palace. You are learning who is in favor, who is out of favor, who is plotting, who is afraid. And you are guarding against a threat that is not just physical, but spiritual. The harem is not just the Sultan's household, it is a sacred space, a place of almost religious purity. Your job is to protect it from the uncleanliness of the outside world, from the world of politics, of ambition, of the male gaze. No man, not even the Grand Vizier himself, can pass through this gate without the explicit permission of the Sultan. If a workman, a plumber, a carpenter needs to enter to make a repair, he will be escorted by you. He will be blindfolded or forced to walk with his eyes fixed on the floor. His contact with the inner world will be kept to an absolute and supervised minimum. And your absolute, incorruptible, and silent discretion is the primary qualification for your job. To gossip, to speak of what you see or hear, would be the ultimate betrayal. And in the Ottoman court, the punishment for betrayal is a swift and silent death by strangulation with a silk cord. Your discipline is not just a matter of professionalism, it is a matter of survival. You are now assigned to the Adalet Kulesi, the Tower of Justice. This is a tall, latticed tower that overlooks the Divan, the great imperial council chamber where the Sultan's ministers, led by the Grand Vizier, conduct the daily business of running the vast Ottoman Empire. The Sultan himself rarely attends these meetings in person. It is considered beneath his supreme dignity. Instead, he will sometimes sit, unseen, behind a golden latticed window high in the wall of the council chamber, listening to the debates. Your job is to stand, silent and invisible, in the darkened chamber behind him. You are the guardian of the Sultan's own secrecy, the silent witness to his silent witnessing. You listen to the debates over military campaigns against the Persians or the Habsburgs. You hear the pleas of ambassadors from Venice and France. You are a silent, living repository of the most sensitive intelligence in the world. And your face, trained over a decade of rigorous education, must remain a perfect, unreadable mask. To show surprise, to show fear, to show any reaction at all to the words being spoken would be a fatal lapse in discipline. The burden of this knowledge, the constant and absolute need for a perfect poker face, would be an unbearable psychological strain. Your modern mind, accustomed to expressing opinions, to reacting, to participating, would be screaming in its silent, velvet-lined prison. But for you, this is the very essence of your power. You are invisible, you are inaudible, and therefore you are underestimated. The great viziers and pashas, in the heat of their debates, may forget the silent, shadowy figure behind the Sultan's lattice. That you do not forget. You are the keeper of their secrets. You know who is truly loyal, who is secretly ambitious, who is dangerously incompetent. And this knowledge, which you will never speak aloud, makes you a powerful and deeply feared figure in the palace. After your duty in the tower, your next task takes you into the heart of the harem itself, but not into the world of the concubines. That is a realm that is, even for you, largely off-limits. Your domain is the world of the royal children and their mothers, the favoured concubines or cadans of the Sultan. You are now in the golden cage, the cafes, the opulent but deeply claustrophobic apartments where the Sultan's sons and brothers are kept in a state of luxurious house arrest. This is a gilded prison designed to prevent the bloody succession struggles and princely rebellions that plagued the early history of the empire. The princes are given every luxury: fine clothes, delicious food, their own servants, and non-fertile concubines. But they are forbidden to leave. They are forbidden to hold any position of power. They are forbidden to father children. They are kept in a state of suspended animation, waiting for the day the old sultan will die, and one of them will be chosen to ascend to the throne, at which point the others will likely be executed to ensure the stability of the new reign. Your job here is one of quiet and constant surveillance. You are their jailer, but you must also be their companion, their teacher, their only link to the outside world. You will play chess with a prince who knows that his next move might be to a throne or to a silken bowstring. You will teach calligraphy to a young boy who is, by the accident of his birth, both a potential ruler of the world and a dead man walking. The atmosphere in the golden cage is a strange and toxic mixture of opulence, boredom, and a deep, soul-corroding paranoia. The princes, with no real work to do, spend their days in the pursuit of pleasure and in the weaving of intricate and ultimately powerless political intrigues. They are constantly trying to glean information from you. What is the Sultan's health? Which of the other brothers is plotting against them? You must be a master of diplomacy, of the non-committal answer, of the gentle but firm refusal to be drawn into their desperate games. Your loyalty is not to them, it is to the reigning sultan and to the stability of the institution itself. You are their friend, and you are their spy. You are their confidant, and you are their executioner in waiting. To navigate this world of gilded despair requires a level of psychological resilience and emotional detachment that is almost inhuman. You do not guard the common concubines in their dormitories. Your rank is too high for that. Your domain is the apex of the harem's power structure. The apartments of the Valid Sultan, the Sultan's mother, and the favored Khadans. You are a functionary, a trusted servant in a world that is run with an iron fist by women. The harem is not a playground of sensual indulgence. It is a deeply political, fiercely competitive, and highly structured institution, and the Valid Sultan is its absolute monarch. She controls the vast wealth of the harem. She arranges the political marriages of her daughters. She advises her son, the Sultan, on matters of state. She is, in many ways, the most powerful person in the empire. Your role is that of a chief of staff, a secretary, a messenger. Because you are a eunuch, you are the only man who can move freely between the forbidden female world of the harem and the male world of the divan and the court. You are the bridge. You will be summoned to the Valid Sultan's magnificent apartments, a world of intricate tilework, of trickling fountains, of the scent of exotic perfumes. You will not look at her directly. You will stand, your head bowed, your hands clasped before you, and you will listen to her commands. She will give you a message to carry to the Grand Vizier, a quiet and deniable instruction on a matter of state policy. She will ask for your report on the mood of the army, on the price of grain in the market, on the latest gossip from the European embassies. You must be a source of perfect, unbiased information. Your senses are her senses. But you must also be a master of discretion. You must know what to say and what to leave unsaid. You must understand the subtle, shifting currents of power, the fierce rivalries between the favored concubines, the deep and often deadly political ambitions of the Valid Sultan herself. You are the confidential messenger. You are the silent, observant, and absolutely loyal servant to the most powerful women in the world. You are not a brute with a sword. You are a master of secrets, a political operator in a world that is defined by its secrecy. You would not last a day in this world because you are not trained in this kind of subtlety. Your modern world, for all its complexities, is a world of direct communication. You are taught to speak your mind, to be transparent, to be yourself. In the Ottoman harem, to be yourself would be a fatal mistake. Yourself is irrelevant. There is only the role you must play, the function you must serve. To survive, you must become a perfect and unreadable mask. You must be a vessel, a conduit, a man who has been so completely and utterly hollowed out of his own personal desires and ambitions that he can be a perfect and flawless instrument of the will of others. The high-stakes political maneuvering and the silent vigils are the cornerstones of your existence. But the bulk of your day is consumed by 1,000 smaller and deeply mundane administrative tasks. The harem is not just a royal residence, it is a vast, complex, and self-contained city with a population of hundreds, sometimes over 1,000 women, children, and servants. Your life is a procession of ledgers, of logistics, and of the relentless, grinding detail of managing a colossal household. This is not the great state treasury of the empire, but the private and incredibly wealthy treasury of the harem itself, controlled by the valid sultan. Here, you are not a guard, but an accountant. You sit, cross-legged, on a fine carpet, a heavy, leather-bound ledger before you. A junior eunuch brings you the daily accounts. You review the expenses for the harem's kitchens, the vast quantities of honey from the Aegean islands, the sacks of rice from Egypt, the rare and expensive spices, cinnamon and clove and black pepper, that have traveled the Silk Road. You check the invoices against the storeroom inventories, your fine calligraphic script making neat, precise entries in the ledger. A single, unaccounted for sack of flour, a single missing jar of honey, is a serious matter that must be investigated. In a closed world of immense wealth, theft is a constant threat, and your vigilance is the first line of defense. You then review the expenses for the harem's wardrobe. You authorize the purchase of bolts of silk from Bursa, of fine linen from Damascus, of the gold and silver thread used for the intricate embroidery on the women's robes. You approve the wages for the army of tailors, of jewelers, of perfumers, and of the dozens of other artisans who are employed solely for the maintenance of the harem's opulent lifestyle. This is another reason you would not survive. You are a creature of a world where value is abstract, represented by numbers on a screen. Here, value is tangible, physical, and deeply sensually present. You are managing a river of real physical wealth, of silks and spices and gold, and the sheer overwhelming materiality of it all is a constant and sometimes corrupting presence. To manage this great wealth without being tempted by it requires a level of discipline and asceticism that is almost monastic. Your life is one of close daily contact with the greatest luxury in the world, but you are forbidden to partake in it. You are the priest of a religion of material splendor, and you, yourself, must remain an absolute pauper in spirit. Your duties then take you to the harem school, the enderun for the young slave girls. Just as you were educated, the most promising young girls who are brought to the harem, chosen for their beauty, their intelligence, and their health, are not just thrown into the world of the concubines. They are put through a long and rigorous education. Here, you are not a teacher, but a supervisor, an inspector. You observe the classes. You see the girls learning to read and write Ottoman Turkish and Persian. You hear them being taught to play musical instruments, the oud, the ney, the kanun. You watch them as they are instructed in the arts of dance, of singing, and of the complex and deeply important art of polite and witty conversation. They are being trained not just to be beautiful companions for the sultan, but to be potential mothers of future sultans, to be the cultured and sophisticated women who will one day wield immense power as the mothers and wives of the empire's elite. The harem is not just a collection of beautiful women, it is a breeding ground for the Ottoman dynasty, and a finishing school for the most powerful women in the land. Your job is to observe and to report to the valid sultan on the girl's progress. You must identify the ones who are exceptionally intelligent, the ones who are particularly skilled in music, the ones who have a natural grace and a quick wit. You are a talent scout, your eye trained to spot the subtle signs of a girl who might one day catch the sultan's eye, who might bear him a son, and who might, one day, become the next. Valid Sultan. You are a player in a long, slow, and deeply serious game of human chess, and these young, beautiful girls are the pawns who might, with the right guidance and a great deal of luck, one day become the queens. But the most strange and most unique part of your day is your role as a guardian of the senses. The harem is a world that is designed to be a paradise of the senses for one man alone, the sultan. For everyone else, it is a place of profound sensory discipline. Your role as a eunuch is not just a physical one. It is a symbolic one. You are a man who has been rendered safe, a being who can exist in this intensely female world without disrupting its fundamental purpose. And to maintain this safety, your own senses must be constantly and vigilantly policed. You must not look. When you walk through the courtyards and the corridors of the harem, your eyes must be downcast. To be caught looking directly at the face of one of the sultan's concubines is a crime of unimaginable proportions. It is a theft. You would be stealing a sight that belongs to the sultan alone. The punishment would be immediate, and it would be blinding. You learn to see the world in your peripheral vision. You learn to recognize the women not by their faces, but by the rustle of their silks, by the scent of their individual perfumes, by the soft, musical sound of their laughter. You must not listen. The harem is filled with the sound of women's voices, with their conversations, their arguments, their secrets. You must train your ears to hear these sounds as you would hear the sound of the wind or the rain. To be caught eavesdropping, to be known as a man who collects the private gossip of the concubines, would be to make yourself a dangerous and ultimately disposable liability in the harem's complex political landscape. The world of the harem is a world of soft silks, of warm, perfumed skin, of a casual female intimacy from which you are absolutely and irrevocably excluded. An accidental, brushing touch against a woman in a narrow corridor is a moment of pure, cold terror. You must apologize, you must retreat, you must make yourself as small and as sexless as possible. You are a ghost in a world of flesh. You would not last a day in this world because it would require you to wage a constant and exhausting war against your own fundamental human nature. Your eyes are designed to look. Your ears are designed to listen. Your mind is designed to be curious. To survive here, you must deliberately and constantly short-circuit these basic human impulses. You must exist in a state of profound and willed sensory deprivation in the very heart of a world that is a symphony of sensory indulgence. Your entire existence is a paradox. You are privy to the greatest secrets of the empire, but you must live a life of absolute silence. You are the manager of a river of unimaginable wealth, but you must live a life of personal and austere simplicity. To be a harem aga is to be the ultimate insider and the ultimate outsider at the same time. It is a life of immense and secret power and of a profound and almost unimaginable loneliness. For all its insularity, the harem is not a hermetically sealed container. It has windows, both literal and metaphorical, that look out onto the bustling, chaotic world of Istanbul, and your role is often to be the shutter on those windows, carefully filtering the light and the air that comes in. One of your most important and regular duties is to manage the flow of goods and people that are essential for the harem's daily life. This makes you a powerful gatekeeper. A merchant from the Grand Bazaar who wishes to be the exclusive supplier of silks to the palace must first win your favor. He will not offer you a crude, direct bribe. The transaction is far more subtle and sophisticated. He will send a gift to your quarters, a rare illuminated manuscript from Persia, a beautifully crafted silver pen box. If you accept the gift, you are signaling that his petition will be given favorable consideration, that you will put his samples before the eyes of the Kethuda Kadin, the chief female treasurer of the Harem. If you return the gift, you are sending a silent and devastating message that his business is not welcome. You are a middleman in a vast and incredibly lucrative economy of influence and luxury. A noble family from a distant province might wish for their daughter to be accepted into the harem school, seeing it as the ultimate path to power and influence for their family. They cannot petition the Sultan directly. They must go through you. You are the first filter, the first judge of a candidate's potential. You will meet with the family. You will observe the girl, assessing her beauty, her intelligence, her temperament. You are the keeper of the keys to the kingdom of influence. This position makes you a man of immense and deeply hidden power. But it also makes you a target. Every merchant you turn away, every family whose daughter you reject, becomes a potential enemy. Your life is a constant and delicate navigation of the treacherous currents of 1,000 different ambitions. To survive, you must be a master of a kind of bland and unassailable neutrality. You must never be seen to have personal favorites. You must always act and be seen to be acting in the best interests of the harem, of the dynasty, of the sultan. Your own personal feelings are a dangerous luxury that you can never afford to indulge. The harem is also a place of constant and often hidden medical drama. The health of the sultan's concubines and, most importantly, his children, is a matter of state security. A single contagious illness could sweep through the crowded quarters with devastating speed, threatening the very future of the dynasty. You do not act as a physician, but you are the administrator of the harem's medical system. You work closely with the Hekimbao, the chief physician of the palace. When a woman falls ill, it is your duty to enforce the quarantine, to ensure that she is moved to the harem's private hospital, a separate and isolated building within the palace grounds. You oversee the procurement of medicines, the rare herbs, the imported spices, the animal-based remedies that are the foundation of Ottoman medicine. You are also a guardian against a different kind of medical threat: poison. In a world of intense rivalries between the concubines, each vying for the sultan's favor, each hoping that her son will be the one to inherit the throne, poison is a constant and terrifying possibility. Every meal that is prepared for the sultan, for his mother, and for his children is tasted by a succession of servants before it reaches their lips. Your job is to oversee this process, to ensure that the chain of custody for the food is never broken, that no unauthorized person ever has access to the royal kitchens. You are the chief of a silent and unending war against an invisible enemy. The women, cut off from their families, living in a state of constant competitive pressure, are prone to what the Ottomans called the melancholy. Bouts of depression, of hysteria, of a deep and soul-crushing homesickness. You will arrange for the visits of the hokers, the religious teachers who will come to read the Quran and offer spiritual guidance. You will organize musical performances, poetry readings, and shadow puppet plays, all designed to distract, to entertain, and to soothe the frayed nerves of the harem's cloistered inhabitants. You are a warden, an accountant, a security chief, and a cruise director, all rolled into one. You are the ultimate manager of this strange, beautiful, and deeply dysfunctional superorganism. And this is another reason you would not last a day. The sheer, overwhelming, and relentless burden of these varied responsibilities would be crushing. You have a job, a single, defined function. To be a master of so many different disciplines, to constantly shift from the mindset of a literary critic to that of a security expert, to that of a logistics manager, to that of a political advisor, would be an impossible juggling act for your modern, specialized mind. But for you, the Aga, this is the very definition of your life. You have been trained since childhood to be a polymath, a man of diverse and formidable skills. You are the ultimate generalist, and your broad competence is what makes you indispensable to the smooth functioning of the Ottoman state. But for all your power, for all your importance, your life is one of profound and almost absolute isolation. The other eunuchs are your brothers, in a sense, but they are also your rivals in the steep and slippery hierarchy of the palace. You are a friend to the princes, but you are also their jailer. You have no one to whom you can speak freely. You have no one with whom you can share your own private fears, your own weariness, your own small human sorrows. Your own inner world is a secret that you must guard as closely as you guard the secrets of the state. You find your solace not in human connection, but in the quiet, solitary pursuits that your education has afforded you. In the deep of the night, in your own private chamber, you will unroll a scroll of Persian poetry and lose yourself in the beautiful, melancholic verses of Hafez or Rumi. You will practice your calligraphy, the slow, meditative, and perfect formation of the Arabic script, a form of prayer, an imposition of a small, perfect order onto a chaotic world. These moments of quiet, solitary, and intellectual beauty are your only escape. They are the small, walled garden of your own mind, the only place in this entire, vast palace where you can, for a few precious hours, be truly and completely yourself. You are a man who is surrounded by people, but you are utterly and completely alone. You are the most trusted man in the most secret place on earth. And the price of that trust is a loneliness so deep, so profound, and so unending that it would, for a modern man, be a form of madness. It is the final and most insurmountable wall of your gilded and magnificent prison. The years of your service begin to weave themselves into a long, seamless tapestry of silk, of secrets, and of a deep and almost suffocating routine. The rhythms of the palace, which once seemed so strange and so demanding, are now as natural and as unconscious to you as your own breathing. You have become a master of this silent, intricate world. You can read the mood of the entire harem in the slight, almost imperceptible shift in the tone of the Valid Sultan's morning greeting. You can anticipate a political crisis in the divan by the sudden, unscheduled arrival of a particular pasha at the palace gates. Your mind has become a perfect and finely calibrated instrument for measuring the subtle and often dangerous atmospheric pressures of absolute power. But this mastery, this deep and almost intuitive understanding of your world comes at a profound and terrible cost. It is a process of slow and almost complete ossification of the soul. The constant need for discipline, for silence, for the relentless suppression of your own personal reactions has begun to take its toll. The vibrant, curious, and perhaps even passionate young man who entered this world decades ago is gone, replaced by a being of pure and almost inhuman function. You witness events that would, in the outside world, be the stuff of high drama, of epic tragedy, of profound human emotion. But you are no longer capable of feeling them in that way. They have become, for you, simply data points, moves in the great and endless game of power that you are tasked with managing. She is a princess from a tributary Circassian tribe, a girl of legendary beauty, with eyes the color of a winter sky and hair like spun gold. She is a political gift, a living symbol of her people's submission to the Sultan. But the Sultan, a man now in his middle years, is captivated by her. She is not just another beautiful addition to his collection. He falls deeply and foolishly in love with her. She becomes his favored one, his Haseki Sultan. She is showered with gifts, with jewels, with silks, with her own private retinue of servants, and with her own magnificent apartments. Her power in the harem grows with astonishing speed, and she becomes a direct and dangerous rival to the previously unassailable authority of the Valid Sultan. The harem, which has been a world of at least predictable and manageable tensions, is now plunged into a state of silent and vicious civil war. The court divides itself into two factions: those who support the old, established power of the Sultan's mother, and those who see their future in the rising star of his new, young, and ambitious favorite. Both women, the old queen and the new, demand your absolute and exclusive loyalty. They both use you as their confidential messenger, as their spy, as their agent in their plots against each other. Your days become a terrifying and exhausting tightrope walk over a pit of vipers. You must carry a secret and treasonous message from the Valid Sultan to the chief of the Janissaries, hinting that the Sultan's obsession with this foreign woman is making him weak, that he is neglecting the affairs of state. You must then, an hour later, carry a message from the Haseki to a powerful pasha in the Divan, a message that promises him a provincial governorship in exchange for his support in undermining the Grand Vizier, who is a creature of the Valide Sultan. You are a conduit for a river of poison. You are the weaver of a web of intrigue that is threatening to tear the very heart of the empire apart. And you must do it all with a face that is a perfect, serene, and unreadable mask of neutrality. You must serve both and be loyal to neither, for to choose a side is to guarantee your own destruction when the inevitable and bloody power shift finally occurs. This is a level of psychological stress that is almost beyond human endurance. You would not last a day. Your modern mind, which is accustomed to the relatively simple moral calculus of loyalty and betrayal, would be shattered by the need to live in this world of permanent and necessary duplicity. To survive, you must have no moral compass of your own. Your only true north is the abstract and often brutal concept of the stability of the dynasty itself, a stability that is now being threatened by the very people you are sworn to serve. The conflict reaches its climax. The Haseki, in a bold and reckless move, convinces the Sultan that his own mother, the Valid, is plotting with his estranged brother in the Golden Cage to have him deposed. It is a lie, a brilliant and venomous fabrication, but the Sultan, blinded by his infatuation, believes it. He summons you. It is the middle of the night. He is in his private chambers, his face a mask of rage and a deep and terrible sorrow. He is about to commit an act that is a violation of the deepest traditions of the empire, the murder of his own mother. She is the Valid Sultan, a figure of almost divine reverence. Her death must be silent, and it must be deniable. He looks at you, his eyes filled with a terrible and almost pleading command. You are the chief black eunuch. This is your duty. You are the Sultan's hand, the instrument of his most secret and most terrible will. To refuse is not an option. It is not even a thought that can be formulated. To refuse is to cease to exist. You walk, your slippered feet making no sound, through the silent, sleeping corridors of the harem. You are accompanied by two other junior eunuchs, their faces pale and slick with a terrified sweat in the torchlight. They are your assistants in this terrible and sacred work. You reach the magnificent guarded doors of the valid sultan's apartments. The guards, who are your own men, see you. They see the cord in your hand and they understand. They do not challenge you. They simply step aside, their faces averted, their bodies trembling. The Valide Sultan is asleep. She is an old woman, her face, in the soft light of a single oil lamp, looking fragile and almost peaceful. For a single, fleeting moment, you see not the great and terrible matriarch who has ruled the harem for 40 years, but a simple, sleeping, and vulnerable old woman. This is the moment that would break you. The moment where your own human empathy, your own innate revulsion at the act of cold-blooded murder would overwhelm you. You would hesitate. You would falter. But you have been trained for this. You have spent a lifetime hollowing yourself out, scouring your soul of all personal feeling, of all moral judgment. You are not a man. You are an instrument. You give the signal. You and your two assistants move with a swift, silent, and practiced efficiency. The act is over in less than a minute. It is not a struggle. It is a quiet and almost clinical procedure. And you feel nothing. The emotional part of you that should be screaming, that should be recoiling in horror, is a dead and silent thing. There is only the cold. You bow. You place the silken cord on a small inlaid table beside him. You do not speak. You do not need to. He understands. He does not thank you. He simply dismisses you with a wave of his hand. You have become a living embodiment of his most terrible secret, a man he can now never afford to look at directly again. The next morning, the harem awakens to the news that the Valide Sultan has died peacefully in her sleep. A great and elaborate public mourning begins. The empire is plunged into a state of ritualized grief, and you, the man who held the cord, are one of the chief mourners. You stand, your face a perfect mask of solemn and respectful sorrow, as the great sarcophagus of the woman you murdered is carried in procession to her magnificent imperial tomb. You have now reached the absolute pinnacle of your profession. You have performed the ultimate act of loyalty. You are now the most trusted, the most feared, and the most secretly powerful man in the entire palace. But you have paid for this power with the last and most precious piece of your own soul. And the being that remains is something new, something that is no longer entirely human. You are a perfect and flawless and utterly empty servant of the machine. And in doing so, you have lost the very thing a normal human being would consider worth surviving for. You are a king in a kingdom of ghosts, and you are the most ghostly of them all. The great gravitational center of the harem's old power structure has been removed, and a new, chaotic, and far less predictable cosmos begins to form around the new sun, the Haseki, the Sultan's beautiful and now unchallenged favorite. Your own position in this new cosmos is a strange and perilous one. You are a man without a true master, and a man without a master is both a powerful and a vulnerable piece on the board. You are the keeper of the Sultan's darkest secret. This knowledge is a shield of almost unimaginable power. The Sultan can never move against you, can never dismiss you, because to do so would be to risk the exposure of his most monstrous and unforgivable act. He avoids your gaze in the corridors. He speaks to you only through intermediaries. You are a living, breathing embodiment of his guilt, a constant, silent reproach. This gives you a new kind of immunity. You are the untouchable man. The Haseki, the new queen of the harem, knows that you were the instrument of her rival's demise. She sees you not as an ally, but as a weapon, a tool that was used to clear her path to power. And she is intelligent enough to know that a weapon that has been used once can be used again. She is deeply and rightly suspicious of you. She keeps you at a distance, surrounding herself with her own new set of loyalists, younger eunuchs who owe their careers entirely to her. You are respected, you are feared, but you are not trusted. You have become a ghost from a previous administration, a relic of a darker, more direct form of power, and you are left to patrol the quiet, echoing corridors of your own lonely authority. Your days settle into a new and deeply unsettling kind of routine. You still manage the harem's vast finances. You still oversee its complex logistics. You still guard its many thresholds. But the soul of the work is gone. Before, your service was to a great and ancient institution, embodied by the formidable Valid Sultan. Now, you are serving the whims of a woman who is, in your eyes, an upstart, a creature of passion and ambition, not of tradition and discipline. You see her filling the harem with her own family members, promoting her brothers and cousins to high positions in the state. You see her spending the harem's vast wealth not on the dignified maintenance of the institution, but on extravagant and vulgar displays of personal luxury. You see the slow, steady erosion of the old, austere and disciplined order that you have given your entire life to uphold. And you must watch it all in silent, impotent disapproval. The Sultan, your true master, begins to decline. His guilt over the murder of his mother and his obsessive and ultimately cloying love for the Haseki have broken something in his spirit. He spends his days in the pleasure gardens with his favorite, listening to music, composing sentimental poetry. He no longer sits, unseen, in the Tower of Justice, listening to the debates of his divan. The great and difficult work of running the empire is left to the Grand Vizier and the Pashas, who are now increasingly under the influence of the Haseki's faction. The empire, which once had a strong and often ruthless hand at its tiller, is now adrift in a sea of harem intrigue. You are a witness to this decay. You see the reports that are sent from the frontiers, the stories of military defeats at the hands of the resurgent Persians, of unrest in the Balkan provinces. You see the rising discontent among the Janissaries, who resent the influence of the harem and the Sultan's neglect of his military duties. You see the slow, creeping rot that is undermining the foundations of the mighty Ottoman state. Your role is to observe, to manage, and to be silent. This is another, and perhaps the most profound, reason you would not have survived. You are a creature of a world that believes in action, in intervention, in the power of the individual to speak truth to power, to be a silent witness to a slow-motion disaster, to possess the knowledge of the rot, but to be utterly powerless to stop it, would be a form of psychological torment that would drive you to madness or to a suicidal act of protest. You have been trained to see yourself not as an individual, but as a cog in a great and eternal machine. Your duty is not to the transient and often foolish personality of the current sultan. Your duty is to the institution of the sultanate itself. You must keep the internal machinery of the palace running smoothly, even as the ship of state is slowly and inexorably taking on water. It is during this period of slow, elegant decay that a new and deeply strange element is introduced into your world. The Haseki, in her quest for novelty and for ever more exotic forms of amusement, develops a fascination with the West. She invites a series of European visitors to the court: a French clockmaker, an Italian painter, a Dutch botanist. These are not the usual, formal, and heavily supervised visits of ambassadors. These are men who are given a limited but unprecedented degree of access to the inner life of the palace. And it is your job, as the chief Aga, to be their minder, their guide, and their constant and deeply suspicious shadow. You are now confronted with a worldview that is as alien to you as your own would be to a modern man. You escort the French clockmaker, a small, nervous man with ink-stained fingers and an almost religious reverence for the mechanics of his craft. He has been brought here to repair the Sultan's collection of elaborate, automated clocks. You stand in silence as he opens the back of a magnificent golden enamel clock. You see the intricate, beautiful, and almost impossibly complex dance of the tiny gears, the springs, the levers. The Frenchman tries to explain the principles of the escapement of the coiled spring, his hands moving with a passionate explanatory grace. You do not understand the mechanics, but you understand, on a deeper level, what you are looking at. You are looking at a different kind of magic. Your own world, the Ottoman world, is governed by the great, cyclical, and fluid rhythms of Islamic time. Time is measured by the call to prayer, by the position of the sun, by the phases of the moon. It is a natural and organic thing. This clock is a different kind of time. A time that has been broken down into tiny, equal, and completely interchangeable units. Seconds and minutes and hours. It is a time that is relentless, impersonal, and utterly divorced from the natural world. It is the time of the machine. And you sense, with a deep and almost instinctual unease, that this new and seemingly innocent way of measuring the world is a profound and dangerous threat to your own. You see in this small, ticking golden box the seeds of a worldview that will one day challenge and perhaps even shatter your own. Even more unsettling is your encounter with the Italian painter. He has been commissioned by the Haseki to paint her portrait, a shocking and almost heretical departure from the Islamic tradition that forbids the depiction of the human form. The painting is to be done in secret, in a secluded garden pavilion. You must be present at all times to ensure that no impropriety occurs, to be the guardian of the Sultan's honor. You stand in the corner of the pavilion, a silent, shadowy, and deeply uncomfortable witness. You watch the painter work. He is a master of the new and almost magical art of Renaissance perspective. You watch as he takes a flat, two-dimensional surface of canvas, and with his brushes and his pigments, he creates a window into a three-dimensional world. And he paints the Haseki. He does not paint her as a symbol, as a flat, iconic representation, as an Ottoman miniaturist would. He paints her as a specific, individual, and deeply human woman. He captures the way the light falls on the soft, translucent skin of her neck. He captures the complex and deeply ambitious intelligence in her eyes. He is not just painting her image, he is painting her psychology. The result is a work of breathtaking and deeply disturbing power. It is an act of almost magical realism. It is a form of seeing, of representing the world, that is utterly alien to your own artistic tradition. and you realize that this too is a profound and dangerous threat. This intense and almost obsessive focus on the individual, on the specific, on the psychological, is a worldview that is fundamentally at odds with your own, which values the symbolic, the archetypal, the divine. This painting is not just a picture, it is an argument for a different way of being human. An argument for the power, the importance, and the beauty of the individual ego. You have spent your entire life trying to suppress your own ego, to become a selfless and functional part of a greater whole. And this quiet and unassuming man with his brushes and his oils is creating a work of art that celebrates the very thing your entire civilization has tried to transcend. You would not have survived this. You would not have been able to process the profound and deeply unsettling intellectual and spiritual challenges that these encounters represent. You would either have reacted with a violent, xenophobic rejection, seeing these new ideas as a demonic corruption, or you would have been seduced by them, your own carefully constructed worldview shattered by the power of their logic, and you would have become a man at war with your own culture, a spiritual exile in your own home. You are a man who is now made almost entirely of discipline. You do not judge, you do not admire, you simply observe. You watch the clockmaker with his gears. You watch the painter with his portraits. And you file it all away in the silent and ever-growing archive of your mind. You are the chief intelligence officer of a civilization, and you have just identified a new and powerful and deeply strange foreign entity. And you know, with a cold and dispassionate certainty, that this new way of seeing, this new way of thinking, this new way of measuring time is a far greater and more permanent threat to your world than any Persian army or Habsburg fleet. You are a witness to the first faint and almost imperceptible tremors of a great and world-shattering earthquake that is coming from the west. And so, the final chapter of your long and almost impossibly strange life begins. It is an epilogue, a long, slow, and quiet exhalation after a lifetime of holding your breath. It is played out in the magnificent but perceptibly tarnished twilight of a declining empire. The brash, confident, and world-conquering energy of the 16th century, the age of Suleiman the Magnificent, has given way to the more stagnant, more insular, and more anxious mood of the 17th. The Sultan you served, the man whose terrible and shared secret has been the unspoken bedrock of your own power, has finally died. The beautiful and ambitious Haseki who ruled him, the woman for whom he committed his greatest sin, has also passed. Her own reign of influence surprisingly short, her beauty a fleeting and insufficient shield against the patient, and far more powerful, currents of the deep state. Inevitable revenge of time. A new sultan is on the throne. He is a young man, almost a stranger, who has spent his entire cloistered life in the gilded prison of the golden cage. Your old pupil. You look at him during his accession ceremony, and you see not a powerful, decisive ruler, but a frightened, pale boy blinking in the sudden, harsh sunlight of absolute power. He is utterly ill-equipped for the brutal realities of rule, his mind and his will softened and made strange by a lifetime of enforced, luxurious idleness. The empire you can see with your old and tired and deeply tragically experienced eyes is beginning to die from the head down. The strong, central will that once drove its expansion is gone, replaced by the bickering of factions and the inertia of a bureaucracy that is now more interested in preserving its own privileges than in serving the state. You have outlived the sultans you served, the grand viziers you spied on, the ambitious pashas whose plots you silently observed, the beautiful, powerful women whose secrets you guarded with your life. You are the Kurzla Ayasasa. You have been retired from the daily, grinding and nerve-shredding administration of the harem, but you are still a resident of the palace, a revered elder statesman, your silent, stooped presence in the courtyards, a living and often uncomfortable link to a more glorious and more terrible past. Your days are no longer filled with the dangerous and exhausting tightrope walk of court intrigue. They are filled with a deep and almost dreamlike quiet. You have been given a suite of rooms, not in the eunuch's quarters, but in a quiet, secluded part of the palace overlooking the Sea of Marmara. For the first time in your life, you have a view. You spend your mornings sitting by a latticed window, watching the great ships with their tall sails moving slowly across the sparkling water. They are ships from Venice, from Genoa, from England, from a world that you have only ever known through intelligence reports and the strange alien objects they brought as tribute. You have lived your entire life at the very center of the world, and you have never, ever been allowed to see it. You spend your afternoons in the palace library, a different kind of harem, a silent and peaceful seraglio of books and maps. You have the authority to read any text you wish, even the most secret archives of the state. You read the great histories of the empire, the glorious and highly edited stories of the conquests of Mehmed the Conqueror and the legal reforms of Suleiman the Magnificent. And you read them with a profound and deeply secret sense of irony. You are reading the official public story of the empire, a story of piety and justice and divinely ordained victory. But you, more than any man alive, know the secret, private history. You know the story of the whispered plots in the dark corners of the divan, of the poisoned cups of coffee, of the silent and terrible work of the silken bowstring. You know that the magnificent marble and gold edifice of the Ottoman state is built upon a dark and bloody foundation of secrets, and that you, yourself, are one of the chief, and now forgotten, foundation stones. Your life becomes a long, slow, and final meditation on the nature of power, of memory, and of silence. You have been the most silent of men, a man whose primary virtue was his ability to never speak, and yet you have lived at the very epicenter of the empire's noise and its endless chattering intrigue. You have been the most sexless of men, a being defined by what was taken from you, and yet you have lived your entire adult life in a world that was a magnificent and powerful monument to the Sultan's procreative power. You have been the most powerless of boys, a stolen Christian child from a forgotten, nameless village in the mountains, and you have become one of the most powerful and most feared men in the Islamic world. One day, a young Aga, a new recruit with the same terrified and fiercely ambitious eyes that you yourself once had, comes to you. They are the household accounts from the long and powerful reign of the previous Valid Sultan, the woman whose death you so efficiently and so secretly orchestrated. Your signature, your elegant and disciplined calligraphic seal, is on every single page. He is a student of the harem's history, and he sees you as his primary source. He wants to know about the old days, about the legends, about the great matriarch. He asks, with a naive and reverent curiosity, what was she really like? You look at this young man, at his eager, unlined and innocent face, and you have a choice. A final and profound choice. You can tell him the truth. You can tell him the real story, the one that is not written in any of the official histories. You can tell him of the bitter and deadly rivalry with the beautiful Haseki. You can tell him of the plots and the counterplots and the river of poison that flowed beneath the serene and beautiful surface of the harem. You can tell him of the Sultan's final terrible command and of the silent and shameful act in her bedchamber. You can give him the gift of your terrible and corrosive knowledge. You can, with a few quiet words, destroy his reverence and perhaps his faith in the very institution he has sworn to serve. Or you can tell him the official story. The story that is, in its own way, a different kind of truth. You choose the official story. You tell him that the valid Sultan was a woman of profound and unshakable piety. You tell him that she was a woman of great wisdom, a true mother to the empire, a steady and guiding hand on the tiller of the state. You tell him that her love for her son, the Sultan, was surpassed only by her love for the future of the dynasty. You tell him that her death was a great and tragic loss, a wound from which the empire has never truly recovered. It is a lie, a beautiful and well-constructed and, in a political sense, a deeply necessary lie. And as you speak the words, as you watch the young man's eyes fill with a new and even deeper reverence, you understand the final and most profound function of your long and silent life. You have not just been a guardian of the harem's secrets, you have been a curator of its memory. You are a man who has spent his life carefully and quietly, erasing the messy, the brutal, the chaotic, and the inconvenient truths, and replacing them with the clean, the elegant, the inspiring, and the politically necessary fictions that allow an empire to believe in its own divine and glorious purpose. You have not just managed the harem, you have managed its story. The young Aga listens, his eyes wide with a deep and grateful admiration. And your lie, your final and greatest act of service to the dynasty, will become, through the simple alchemical process of repetition and the passage of time, the truth. This is your final and most subtle act of power. But the power to shape the past, the power to control the narrative. In the final weeks of your life, as the winter fogs begin to roll in from the Bosphorus, you are afflicted by a strange and gentle malady. You begin to hear things, not the voices of the palace, not the intrigue, not the politics. You begin to hear the sounds of your own, long buried and almost completely forgotten, past. You will be sitting in the deep and peaceful silence of the library, the scent of old paper and leather around you, and you will suddenly and clearly and with a breathtaking vividness hear the sound of the wind moving through the high pine trees of the mountain village where you were born. You will be walking through a silent marble courtyard, and you will hear the faint and impossibly sweet and heartbreakingly clear sound of your mother, humming a simple and beautiful lullaby in a language you have not spoken or even thought in for 70 years. The great and disciplined fortress of your mind, the unfeeling and functional structure that you have so carefully and so painfully built over a lifetime of service, is finally and gently beginning to crumble. The boy you thought was dead, the boy who was stolen from his family and his world, is beginning to awaken. The memories you have so ruthlessly and so necessarily suppressed are now returning, not as ghosts to torment you, but as gentle and long-lost friends coming to escort you on your final journey home. You die as you have lived, quietly and alone, in your own comfortable chamber, a window open to the sea. Your passing is marked by a brief and formal court mourning. You are buried with the honor befitting your high rank in a fine marble tomb, your name and your titles recorded in the official histories of the palace. A single, honorable, and beautifully written line: "Here lies the faithful servant of the dynasty." It will never know of the boy who was stolen. It will never know of the terrible and necessary choices you made. It will never know of the blood on your silent hands. It will never know of the profound and almost unbearable loneliness of your long, strange, and powerful life. And that, you would have understood, is your ultimate and most perfect victory. Your life's work, your greatest masterpiece, was the perfect and absolute erasure of yourself. You became a ghost in your own life, a silent and unreadable vessel for the will of the state, so that the great and terrible and magnificent machine of the empire could continue to run. As you, the listener, now finally allow yourself to drift into the deep and peaceful and restorative mystery of your own sleep, let the story of the Harem Aga settle. It is a story with no easy moral. It is the story of a man who was forged by the cruel and indifferent fires of history into a perfect and necessary tool for a particular and brutal world. It is a story that asks a quiet and deeply unsettling question: what is the price of order? What is the true and human cost of a stable and powerful and magnificent civilization? The answer, which you have witnessed tonight, is often a lonely, silent, and forgotten man standing guard at a forbidden door, his own individual humanity, the final and most tragic sacrifice. Let the silence of the Topkapi Palace be your own silence now. Let the intricate, the beautiful, and the sometimes terrible patterns of its long and secret history resolve into a single, peaceful, and final image.